Welcome back to my series where I'm going through all of the challenges in my book, The C# Player's Guide. Last time we worked on this challenge here, which is the kind of the foundation for this Fountain of Objects boss battle. And the next several challenges all expand on that, though I do want to remind people that even though there's 6 challenges to come, you don't need to do all of them. You're not expected to do all of them. Either you should have done the foundation one and then pick 2 of the rest of these 6, or you go get my code online and kind of learn how to use it and then do, I think it's 5. I think it actually says here, complete 5 of the following. So you got your choice. This one may or may not be one that you choose to do. Do not feel like you need to do every single challenge that's in here. But in these videos, I'm going to do that. So in this video, we're going to do the small, medium, or large challenge, which takes our existing Fountain of Objects game and give us some options in terms of how big or complex the game is. And I'm just going to pick up from the code that I had last time and just keep going with it. So this is, in terms of size, this is much smaller than before, than the last one, than the foundation, the core game that we did. But so this one, all it's asking us to do is to basically allow us, the player, whether they want to do a small, medium, or large game. Small is 4x4, medium is 6x6, large is 8x8. And then to just come up with a place for the fountain room and the entrance. And then this kind of gives some rules about what to do if you're doing, depending on what other challenges you pick. So that, if you do the Amaroks challenge, each of the different sizes need Amaroks. Each of the different sizes need Maelstroms. Each of the different sizes need pits. So we haven't done any of those yet. So we are going to not worry about the details of that yet. This one should be, like I said, a whole lot smaller than before, but we'll just kind of go through this. And I think to kind of get things started, the first thing on my mind is, given that the world doesn't automatically give us a map to look at, we can't just see where everything is. I think it makes sense for us to sketch out, and I would normally just do this on paper, probably. Like, it depends on how many people I have to coordinate with or things like that. I don't have a convenient way to share paper or a whiteboard, so I'm gonna sketch out what these worlds look like, these little maps look like. And we had this issue before too. Like, ideally this would be somehow randomized, but we don't have the tools for that yet, and this challenge doesn't ask for that. It's okay for us to just pick a specific size and kind of fill it in with concrete things. When we'll learn about randomness and the random class. I think it's level 32, so I think it's the next level. So we're coming up to that soon, and you could come back and revisit this if you wanted after learning about random. But for right now, we're just going to stick with just what it asks for here. Keep it simple, not try and make life harder for us than it needs to be. So what I'm going to do is, let's see. So the first thing I feel like I need to do, this was our design, our CRC cards. We can revisit the CRC cards in a minute to see if there's anything we feel like we ought to redesign. But what I want to do is just make a little map here. And I'm using Illustrator here. Like I said, normally I just grab some graph paper or just blank printer paper and just sketch some stuff out. I wouldn't actually usually do what I'm doing here. So just making a little 4x4 world here really quick. that's good enough. Like I said, this doesn't need to be precise. I just need some way to show what's going on here. So, well, I'm going to change the color of this. This is the entrance. So I'm going to make it yellow. Let's see. Oh, I don't have any. All right, that's close enough to yellow. So that's the entrance. I'm going to make this one blue. This is the fountain. So that's our 4x4 world, which we've already actually done. Yeah, so all we need to do here is invent a 6x6 and an 8x8 board. And then we just need to choose a place for the fountain room. I'm just going to save these colors off so I can use them really quick. But yeah, so we just need to pick a spot for it, and it really doesn't matter where they are. I don't even have white in here. All right, try that again. Yeah, so it doesn't matter where they are, but I'm gonna avoid the top corner. So let's say why not here, and why not here, and then the fountain. Let's put it here, and let's put this one here. All right, and we will use these in the future as well. So I'll add to these for the other challenges that are in here, pits and some of the monsters. But this is good enough for now. So I'm going to scoot this off to the side. I'll be able to see it, but you guys won't. So let's see. But we actually kind of technically have done this item here. Pick an appropriate location is what we just did. We haven't put it into the game yet. So before the game asks the player whether they want to play a small, medium, or large game, create a 4x4 world or a 6x6 or an 8x8. And like let's look at these cards. Is there anything that we need to change about our this gives us kind of a view of what our code looks like at a really high level. And is there anything that we know needs to change? Any new cards we should make? Any cards we should get rid of? Given that this comes down to the size, this thing needs to be able to handle sizes besides 4x4. And this thing needs to be able to... So we do have one new responsibility here, and that is to ask the player for... a game size. So that could go in a lot of places. But I'm going to put that responsibility here. So ask the user for a game size. So you like this thing here could handle that. Maybe the constructor or the run method that we already had could take on that responsibility. I think you could go either way on it. I don't think it matters too much, but I think I'm going to have that do it. So let's go look at our code. And there's a few places we're going to have to make changes. And the first is going to be by the way, I can come over here and right now I've got everything in one file. We are this the size that this program is. I don't feel too bad about having everything in one file, but it's getting bigger and bigger, and at some point we'd want to separate this out into other files. And there are a lot of people who just always put every type in a separate file, or there are people who might say, well, all these rooms, we're going to have like a rooms.cs and have them all in one thing, and then we'll take this map and have it in one thing. Or maybe the map and all the room types go in a single file or something like that. Like a lot of people, especially when it starts to get this big, will start to split it out. And actually, for a very long time in C Sharp's history, the convention was every type gets a file. That has changed a little bit more recently, where people just kind of the way that people program in C Sharp and some of the new language features have resulted in smaller types, kind of like this, and kind of like, you know, the record here. Like, it seems a little silly to have a whole file just for this. So anyway, people have different strategies for organizing stuff, and I'm going to just use the really simple strategy of right now I'm just going to keep it all in one file. And to back me up on that, the book hasn't technically talked about splitting your code across multiple files yet anyway. So I think it's fine to just keep everything all in one file, even as this grows a little bit bigger here as we do these expansion challenges. But so yeah, I can kind of, you know, expand this and I can see all the types that are defined in here. And the main one I was looking for is map, which I'm actually already in now. So one thing we want to be able to do here is this needs to support different sizes. And right now we've got this configured to just be 4x4. And the other thing is this is set up to like be hard coded for that the 2x2 size, sorry, the 4x4 size, and that's going to have to change. So there was one thing that we had kind of touched on before, and that is maybe this guy really shouldn't be the one defining the map. So what we're going to do here is we're going to allow the outside, somebody who's creating a map, to be able to just say how many rows and how many columns this should have. And then we're just going to say assign those to these properties, which now I got to change. I got to make these be get only properties, which these properties can be set from the constructor, which we're doing, and can't change outside of that. So okay, anyway, so that now the outside world's going to say, well, this is how big it is. And by and large now, most of our code is going to be unaffected by this. The one thing that will be affected is we've changed this constructor's parameter list. It used to have none, now it has two. So we have one line of code that's not compiling correctly. We'll deal with that in a second. But this code here all should work as expected. This will initialize everything regardless of, like, even if we passed in 60 or 2000, this code right here should work. It'll fill the entire map with empty rooms. This part, I think we should move this out. I think we should just get rid of this and just say a map. When you say new map, you know, however many rows and columns, it should create a world that's full of empty rooms and let somebody else figure out how to handle the special rooms. So I'm shifting that responsibility over a little bit, and I'm going to, so for example, I could now, like in this case, I could just move it to here, and I could say map equals new map, and then map. So in order for the outside world to modify this, I'm going to need the ability to do something like public void set room. And I don't know what's going to be easier to, if we were going to be using this a lot, I would actually maybe consider supporting, you know, matching sets, mirrored, you know, to have an int row, int column, and also just a location. I'm going to keep this simple though and say we'll just use int two ints instead of a location. So I could come up here now and I can say map.set room, and I can do 0, 0 should be a new entrance room. And 0, let's see, row 0, column 2 is a new fountain room. Oops, not that. All right, so we have made one change to our thing, and that is now the map itself can support any room size, and it also allows now the outside world something else to say, no, this right here is, this is what room should be in there. So it'll you call new map and you'll get an empty map of the size that you've asked for, and then after that you fill in specific rooms. So now we just need some way to be able to choose different sizes. One thing that I think I want to do, because, and I said this before, I kind of want that response. I don't want this guy to, I want his responsibility to be focused on running the game. I don't want him to be focused on initializing a game. I want to be able to just say, hey, new game, here's all of the stuff that you need in order to run the game. I'm going to give you all the parts, all the rules, whatever it is. I'm just going to give you the stuff. Your job is just to run it. So like I said, we could come in here and we could say, do you want to play a small, medium, or large game? We could just ask the user here in the constructor. For me, I don't love the idea of, especially a constructor, having a console.readline and console.writeline. That's usually not, like, constructor should just get the object into a good starting state, and that doesn't usually involve interacting with the user. So, like I said, we could ask for it here, but I'm going to actually push that out. Now, one thing I could do is I could, for instance, make an enumeration. Like I could do that, and then I could say, I could pass in the game size, and that almost work. Like that's I think a workable solution. It's not my favorite. What I actually think I want to do is say, I want to give, in terms of making the thing, I want to hand off. So right now this thing creates the map, and I want this guy to get his map instead of just creating it directly. I want the outside world, something that has decided it's time to make a new game, to say, here's the map you should be using. The other thing that I think we need to put in here is we need to pass in the start location. So because we do need to get the player started in the right spot. Alternatively, this could pass in the player. That could be a possibility too, that we give it the map and the player itself. Which might not be a bad way to do it. But anyway, so right now I'm going to save off the map to our property. And then up here, we need to just say, for example, something like that. We don't need this enumeration. All right, so anyway, at this point now, we just we still haven't actually given the user the ability to pick small, medium, or large, and we'll get to that next. But now the map itself can support any size, and the uh, the game itself can support a map of any size as well. Let's make this change. I like that better. So that's all we're looking for here is that. And I'm actually going to make one other change here. I'm going to put this on a separate line as well. So we've got our code here that sets up the map and then sets up the game, and then this code that runs it. And again, right now, if we run this, we're going to get identical behavior to what we had before. But we've made a whole bunch of changes that should make the feature we're trying to add really easy to add by now just simply. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to put this in a method. Let's make the method down here. So it returns a map, make small map. And I'm going to put most of this in here. We don't need to save that in a variable. We can just return new. Return a new game. Oh, I'm returning the wrong thing. In fact, let's call this make small game. And now we can just say all right. So once again, we've made even more changes and we still haven't actually made it so the game supports different sizes of games, but we're getting closer. At this point now we can say make medium game. So this is 6 by 6. Let me come back here and look at what I drew. So in this case, the entrance is at 2, 2. And the fountain is at what's that? 5, row 5, column 6. And we want this to start at 2, 2. And then we can have make large game. Make this 8 by 8. And the entrance is at 6, 6. And the fountain is at 0, 5. So now we've got methods that create games of different sizes. And now all we need to do right here, instead of always calling make small game, well, I mean, so right now we could, by just making a code change, we could, let's run this. What was that? Oh, 6, 6. Move east, move south. There we go. All right, so now by making a code change, we can change the size of the game, but what we really want is for the human. to do it. So what we're going to do is say console.read line. Well, console.write line. Do you want to play a small, medium, or large game? And do console.read line. We'll just do a switch here based on the input. If they typed in small, then we'll call that make small game. If they entered medium, we'll call make medium game. And if they said large, we'll say make large game. And if they said anything else, we should probably handle that too. All right, so if they, okay, so in this case, everything is pretty good. This can actually be nullable to get rid of that warning. All right, so if they enter in a good value here, I'm going to delete this. At this point, if they enter in a good value, we'll if they type in small, medium, or large, we'll call the right method, and then we'll come down here and run it. The only thing we haven't handled is what happens if they give us garbage, and we can handle that. Like it makes this is that path. If they give us anything but small, medium, or large, we know we've got bad data. So all we need to do here is something like do while game while game is while the game is null. So I gotta move this up. What we'll do here is if game is null, console.write line. I didn't understand that. Now we could be a little smarter and we could say the choices are small, medium, or large. That probably wouldn't be a bad thing to do. But so now let's come in here and type in garbage. So we're running, but we did get an error. Somewhere I've got a mistake in here. Let's see if we can figure it out. I think I'm off by one on these numbers. Let me jump back here. So this room here is, so this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is row 4, column 5. I think I got this one right, but I think I'm off by one here. I think basically I'm trying to assign it to this spot here, which is off the map. So let's see, 0. Yeah, so it should be 2, 2, and it should be row 4, column 5. So 2, 2, row 4, column 5. I got to pull out my cheat sheet here. Oh, I had that backwards. In my mind, I thought I was starting here, so I moved up to here. So I was trying to go this way. I got to come all the way back over here. So I think we're basically there. The question is, are we happy with this code? I do think that they're like this now made our main method honestly quite complicated, and it's kind of nice to have a really simple main method because there's always a temptation to just keep jamming more and more stuff in there. So, for example, we could put this in a method. And I'm going to shove all this into another method. At this point, we might be able to so it once this is in a method, we might be able to simplify this. For example, you could say if game is not null, return the game. And then we can get rid of this, and we can make this just be a while true. Put this right here again. Get rid of all that. So that's simpler. So now we've kind of flipped it around where once we find a good game, we just return it. Otherwise, we'll just keep going. I don't like this is fine, but I want to explore this. Let's see. Like we could say if input is small, return make small game. If input is medium, so basically instead of using a switch, use if statements. Make medium. If input equals large, return make large game. And now we can get rid of that. So if we find one of our happy choices, we return the appropriate one. Otherwise, we say, "Hey, I don't know what you're talking about," and then loop. I think that's simpler code. I do think we should do this kind of thing. We should use. So let me talk that through a little bit more. I want to add the color to this that the base game had color. So what I want is I want to follow this pattern. I want to be able to use white, ask a question, change the color to cyan, get input on all on the same line. So essentially I want this code in two places, and in order to handle that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a separate class. This is going to be a static class. Console utilities. And I'm going to make a method here that allows me to ask a question and get an answer. So we're going to prompt the user for some piece of information that we want, and put this code in here. So console.write, we will put the question followed by a space, and then we will return whatever came off the console.readline. This needs to be static. And now we can use that here. So console utilities.prompt. We just give it our question, which is, what do you want to do? And there. And now that we've got this static console utilities class, we can do the same thing here. So console utilities.prompt. This method it adds in the blank space at the end of this, so we don't need to include that. And then we can just put this right here. So now from now on, any place that we've got that wants to ask a question and get that the coloration for free, we'll be able to. So we got our colors there for free. And so now our main method, once again, got quite short. In fact, we could do this if we wanted to. Like I said, but it does have all of these. It does have all of these methods that are just piling up here. And I think, like, if somebody wanted to, it wouldn't be bad to like shove all of this into another class whose sole responsibility is to make games. And for example, we could have a public class game factory, and we could take all of these, stick them in here. The simplest thing we can do here is just make these all public static methods. So now we've got a class. Got these out of order. All right. Now we have this class that by request you can give us a small game, a medium game, a large game. I kind of like that. I'm debating whether this should go into that too, and I mean, maybe it should. It definitely could. Don't need this anymore because that's known from the context. So now I have a class whose job is to create games. I definitely don't dislike this approach. I don't know that the other approach was all that bad either. So now we've got, and we didn't make a card for it. And that's, I've talked about this in a lot of these videos. The purpose isn't, doing this type of stuff, making CRC cards. The purpose isn't to always have cards that represent your design. It's the purpose is that sometimes it's easier to think through how, like, in truth, this right here, I don't know what just happened. Just closed. The truth is this right here, your code is your actual like detailed design that describes everything that the software needs to do in detail. This type of thing here is these are the only reason to do these is because sometimes it's easier to think through a problem. Like it's at this level, it's really easy to just shift responsibilities around, to move cards around, to reorganize, to make a new card. Easier in card form than it is in code. And so that's the idea is we do this so that we can think about it and have an educated guess about where we need to go in terms of writing code. But this isn't really, I mean, this is a design activity and this is a way you can envision your code. But this is just a guess about what it might look like. So we never actually made a card for that factory. It's kind of an afterthought. We could, if we wanted to, come in here and make it. It really wouldn't be that hard to come in here and just do this. But I also think like we could make that. This thing is using it. So now this thing needs a collaborator that is the game factory, which is how we've actually got the code set up. But like I said, I don't feel like in general we don't have to make sure these cards are always exactly like what our code looks like. That's not really the point. We should do that if it's helpful, if it helps us think through things. But the purpose isn't to have 10,000 cards and to be able to represent our entire 10,000 line program and cards on a tabletop. The purpose is to have software that actually works. So whatever activities help you build software that actually works, that's what you should be doing, and not more than that. So I think we are done with this one, and so we can do small, medium, and large games, and we've done that, plus a whole bunch of discussion on refactoring and making this other class, even though that wasn't strictly necessary. But like I said, I kind of like it. How many lines of code do we have now? So we actually added about 50 lines of code for that. Most of that's right here. And these make different sizes, different types of things. Yeah, we start on line 3 here and we go down to line almost 43. So that's 40 lines of our 50 additional lines was in right here. All right, let's be done with this video, and I will see you guys next time.